Vice President Dr. Bawumia says investment the Akufo-Addo government has made in its digitization efforts have put Ghana on the path to becoming one of the most digitized economies in Africa. He says this government fixed the economic mess left by the erstwhile Mahama administration and created 2 million jobs in the process while digitizing the economy and cleaning up the banking sector, making a strong case for the re-election of the Akufo-Addo administration. In a presentation on Thursday at the University of Ghana, Dr. Bawumia said the new patriotic party deserves a second term in office.
Government revenue, because we made it electronic and everybody had to pay for services through the electronic means, revenue at the Ministry of Tourism and Culture improved fourfold, just because you were dealing with the electronic payment system. A fourfold increase in revenue. I wonder where it used to go to before. Ladies and gentlemen, next year, by the grace of God, we will integrate the national ID card with passports, with the SNIT card, with the tax identification, with DVLA, with bank accounts, SIM cards, and so on. Currently, Ghana has only less than 3 million people registered for tax identification number. Next year, your national ID number will be your tax identification number, and that will be it. So when we do that, we will increase the people covered for tax in the tax next from less than 3 million to 15 million in just one foul swoop. And that is coming, that work is already taking place. We expect them to complete it before the end of this year so that we will launch it next year. Your social security number will also be your national ID number and so on. We are doing the integration. Ladies and gentlemen, to address the issue of the dominance of cash payments in our economy, we have recently rolled out a universal QR code payment system, which allows all merchants, whether you are watching, seller, or crossroads, whether you are a shoe shine boy, driving a truck rod, a shop owner, any service provider, all merchants. It allows you to receive payments instantly on your phone. And customers can just scan the QR code or dial a USSD code if you have a young phone, and you get instant payment. So you don't need to be carrying cash around. And what is so remarkable, when we started this process, people were not sure we could do it. We've done it, and Ghana is the first country in the world to implement a universal QR code payment that accommodates both bank accounts and mobile wallets. We are the first to do it. Bank accounts and mobile wallets. No other country in the world has been able to do it. There are 3 countries that have done universal QR codes. You have Singapore, India, and Ghana. Singapore and India, they've done it only for bank accounts. But we said we can't do it for bank accounts because it's only going to be for a few people. We want to do it for everybody who is unbanked. So we did it for mobile wallets and bank accounts. And we are the only country to do it. It is a remarkable achievement and will allow Ghana to move towards a cash-line society in just a few years. The future is really exciting. Really.
Dr. Bawumia, they're making some claims about Ghana being first in a couple of things. Well, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Kobi Mensah, disagrees with him. He joins us on the show. Thank you so much for holding on, Dr. Kobi Mensah. And I would just like to use this opportunity to thank you as a resource person for helping the multimedia group bring our audience the very best of content. Let's zoom in on what the Vice President said about Ghana being the first country to have a universal QR code that accommodates bank accounts and mobile money wallets. You say that's not true.
Dennis, thanks for having me. Let me say that I am no way trying to challenge or expose the vice president. But as an academic, I also believe that we have a duty to inform the society, to contribute to public, dialogue or discourse, and then also make sure that we could, correct, if possible, notions created so that our country can be in a better position. Now, as of last year, I was, I happened to be part of a research collaboration team from Germany, and that study group includes members of other countries like Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, etc. And in that particular research, which is a digital trust at the workplace, my responsibility was to actually do a comparative study between Ghana and Kenya and other African countries vis-a-vis the rest of the world. Now, in our study, when I wrote the abstract, the materials that I used actually mentioned vividly that in Kenya and even in Nigeria, the payment system that is actually spearheaded by M-Pesa, which is widely known by a lot of people within the tech space, had actually, the kind of description the vice president actually gave. And that was the reason why I reacted to it. Obviously, the party foot soldiers would not be happy, for me to say that we are not the first. But the evidence is clear. I can actually point to you literature that actually suggests that the interactivity between bank account, mobile wallet payment, facilitated by QR codes or being driven by QR codes, was already implemented in India, in Kenya, in 2016, as far back as 2016, and there's evidence for that.
It's interesting. The vice president also speaks about mobile money interoperability. And it's interesting you mentioned your study of Kenya and Rwanda, because we know in comparison to Ghana, these countries were way ahead in mobile money usage before we came on board. So on the bit of interoperability, do you also have issues with that claim he made?
Of course. I mean, Kenya has been at the forefront. For those of you who do not know, in Kenya, the public transport, like the trotros, as we call it here, the matatus in Kenya, they use, that particular system. You actually scan your mobile phone, on the door. If you actually enter in the car, you scan it, and then the payment actually takes place on that. I can read you one excerpt from one of the literature, and I'll be brief. Now, it says that M-Visa, an exciting digital payment method, which offers simple implementation, security, and interoperability between banks and mobile networks. It was first introduced in a pilot with Indian banks in October 2015, followed by expansion in the market and introduction in Kenya in 2016. It boldly says that, and this is not the only literature. I have actually cited a number of literature, as I said in my work, that actually made that payment system clear. So yes, I agree that we're moving forward. I'm a very big fan of digitization, to be very honest with you. I am very, very big fan of digitization, and I believe that most of our problems could be, solved by digitization. So yes, what the vice president is doing, I'm in love with it. But I think that he has to focus on the functionality of the digital, as opposed to saying we're first, because the evidence does not actually support that.
Doc, going through your tweets, you appear quite concerned about the kind of, in your words, propaganda that has been thrown out there in this political season. You have a political marketing background, and our political system and how it is sometimes does not allow for rigorous discourse when it comes to issues like this. And like you mentioned, you may get attacked by foot soldiers or sympathizers of a certain party when you go all out to speak against or criticize some of the claims that are being made. Going into the elections, what do you think must be done so that people vote based on issues that are factual and just not being thrown out there just to convince people that something is really being done or something has been done in the past?
I think that the political parties have to actually respect the academia. If you use our platforms, obviously the party decided to come to Legon, I'm sure for a particular reason. We spent time sat in his speech. Obviously, we were even expecting that they could actually open the gate for questioning. And that's what we do as academic. We interrogate. Obviously, they didn't do that. They had their own agenda. Now, if you want to engage in a discourse, especially involving the academia, you must expect a certain level of interrogation. The political parties must actually be developmental agents. They must call their foot soldiers, to understand that when it comes to politics, it's about discourse, it's about engagement. It's not about, saying untruth and trying to defend it. That is not helpful. And I'm quite disappointed it's coming from MPP because this is a party that, at least growing up, we thought they allow, diverse opinions. They allow, discourse. They allow criticisms, and they actually make sure that each and everybody's voice is actually heard. Unfortunately, I have been quite disappointed by that posture, of the MPP, and I have to be very frank with you. They haven't allowed public discourse. They haven't allowed diverse opinions, and they haven't certainly allowed critiques, in that sense as we know them or as we thought they were. And they have to address that.
Oh, okay, Doc, you talking about academia and the role of academia in elections. Just yesterday, a different department of the University of Ghana released a poll, a survey, findings of a survey they conducted about the elections, and they pitched the MPP's Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to win. As a political marketing person, how do these polls impact the decision, especially of undecided persons or floating voters, as we call it?
Okay, we must understand that voters are not a unitary group. I mean, there are different segments. There are different segments of voters. There are voters who actually make their decisions based on what themselves are experiencing. There are voters who actually vote according to their lineage, as in the traditions. Their families believe in a particular tradition. There are voters who simply want to disengage from the tradition and find their own path, i.e., having their own independent evaluation of situations. There are voters, quite frankly, who do not know who to vote for and therefore would follow the bandwagon. They want to look at the winning horse, to back. Some voters do not want to back, the losing horse. There are others who also want to actually make sure that they're giving voices to some lesser known political parties as a way of, kind of demonstrating, their unhappiness with so-called the big parties. So for those who actually do not exactly know how they want to vote, they follow the bandwagon. And so, polls, for example, inform them, for example. If they get to know that, yes, the poll is saying that it's going this way, they actually follow that. Although they may not be a significant, kind of percentage of the voting bloc, they are also there. I mean, they are also there, that kind of thinking. So yes, polls actually, apart from informing the political parties on their own performance as a gauge to know how they're doing, they satisfy the curiosity of voters because voters want to know how it stands and who is actually in the lead, like a horse racing kind of reporting. And so, yes, it has an impact. Of course, it also generates some kind of conversation because as we speak, we have actually committed yesterday and today discussing it. So they create some kind of feeling in the system, and they could potentially influence some kinds of voters to vote in a particular direction.
From past experiences, not only in Ghana, in the world over, we know that these polls aren't cast in stone. That's to say that there could be surprises during the elections and when the votes are counted. What would make the dynamics change? Example, if a party is on the losing side in a polls, what could make the tables turn?
Well, it could also be that the poll is faulty. I mean, the poll, was not, appropriately, engineered in terms of methodology, in terms of analysis, for example. So that could be that the poll is actually reflecting something different, not actually what is transpiring, on the ground. Now, of course, sometimes the poll could perhaps reflect the actual situation on the ground, but there could be a major event, and as a result, could sway people's opinion. I mean, voters, if you engage voters, sometimes people could change their minds. Just even in the polling booth, for example, there's evidence for that. So yes, there are so many reasons why the final verdict may not reflect the vote. The poll, which we have seen evidence. I mean, history tells us, not even in Ghana. In the UK, for example, the polls got it wrong, or people changed their minds between the Remain and the Brexit, for example. We saw 2016, what happened in the US. And of course, some polls also called it for NDC, but we saw what happened in our own country. So there are so many reasons why polls may not reflect the end verdict, which is the D-Day.
I appreciate your time this morning, Dr. Kobi Mensah, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And you just heard him share his thoughts about polls as they relate to elections. And earlier, he spoke about the claims of Dr. Bawumia that Ghana is the first to have a universal QR code that accommodates bank accounts and mobile money wallets. Well, he says that's not true.